A2theK.
'Tis the season for A2theK. I like it. And we'll be back next week. I said.
Holy shit! What's on your head?
Occasion. I don't really know. To be fair, some kind of cat toy.
Nice.
But yeah.
So it's that time of year.
You're not gonna be able to resist that, are you?
I'm struggling to already. It's that time of year, Carl.
It is.
It's that time of year when we take a look back. It's honestly, we were on the verge of doing a clip show, but
in an ideal world, if we had some kind of unpaid intern that could just do the grunt work for us,
and if you'd like to be an unpaid intern,
you call us now. But yeah, like that was the plan. We were going to look back at some of our favorite moments and all that, but then we were like, editing. Who's got time for that?
So you're not going to get a cheesy clip show. It's like sometimes things just don't pan out, so then we cut.
We had a whole plan. That was like what we were going to do.
What we are going to do is sit and talk about ourselves for probably half an hour.
Yeah, strap yourselves in while we, gloat and,
in this lovely cold winter night, grab yourself an ice cold drink.
That's right. What's that you're drinking, Anthony?
This here? Why, it's a Pepsi Cola.
Oh, yes. Who's Max?
Will not bow down to corporate sponsors.
It's a Pepsi Max. Who's Max? But yeah, I love it. But, so the plan is...
Chip.
Perfect. We've sold out basically.
I even went because I know the majority of our audience is American. I even called them chips.
There you go. Look at that.
Commitment.
But the plan is a bit of a recap over the past year and what a crazy year it's been.
It's where we get reflective and whimsical.
It is. But I know we say this every year. Is this like this is the third one of these we've done now? We started in 2020. We're a lockdown podcast. So obviously we did recap 2020, recap 21, and now recap 22. And we say it every year, but how do we top last year? How do we top this year?
What a good fun year we've had.
It's been mental, hasn't it? Let's be honest. Obviously we've just from a growth standpoint as well. I haven't grown at all. To be fair, I'm still 5'8".
Yeah. Still taller than you.
Yeah, one day, I keep hoping that. But no, from a channel perspective, so we hit 1K subs on YouTube this year, which was awesome. It
felt like such a 2 years to get that. It was one of them where it is a grind, and you see, sometimes it's I'm sure other podcasts who hopefully are listening to this. We've got some nice fellow podcasters who are friends of the show. And they'll probably echo similar sentiments where it just feels like such a grind, and you see other people who have that sudden uptake, and you're like, fucking hell, how did he do it?
Yeah.
But and it's not I don't know how you phrase it. It's not envy, but it's like, are we doing something wrong? Or you end up, thingy. But it is a slow grind, and I feel like it took ages to get to the 1K. But then
it was funny, wasn't it? Because obviously the initial goal, and I think we spoke about this on the Q&A episode we did a couple of months ago. But it's we never set out a goal to do this or be this or get this many people or whatever. But obviously one of the milestones we had was let's get 100 subs because then we can have our own name. Now every fucker gets it because YouTube have changed the policy anyway.
We get a name and a handle now.
Exactly.
Honestly, it's getting as confusing as Twitter under Elon Musk.
Exactly. But yeah, and then obviously, so it's been quite a slog over the last couple of years, but we finally hit 1,000. But what's been mad is after we hit 1,000, I think you mentioned that this was a thing that happens, but we're now at 1.4K.
Yeah. Well, when I was
up 400.
When I was how do you crack YouTube? What do you do? And you look at all the advice on YouTube, and again, it was never about getting the numbers, but what's the best way of managing YouTube? They were niche down. Don't be all over the place. You niche down. And we were always a niche anyway. It's wrestling is what we do, so it's a wrestling YouTube show, And so there's little tips like that. Be concise in your titles, have images that are quite grab. And one of the things a lot of them seemed to say in the advice was getting to 1K is harder than going beyond that. Once you hit 1K, you get a bit more notice.
So sorry, I'm laughing. Have you seen the Michael McIntyre stand up where he goes on holiday to some hotel in Asia somewhere, and they ask him whether he wants 1 key, but it's you want 1 key, and he's like, okay.
Anyway,
sorry.
First tangent to the night. I don't even know how to follow that. But apparently once you get past the 1K mark, it then sort of gets a bit easier in terms of the algorithms. I don't know if there's any truth to that, but it certainly seems to have been the case for us.
But yeah, as soon as we hit 1K, like obviously
we're at 1.4 now, and that's been like we've managed to get 400 subs in less time than it took us to get to 1K.
Yeah, and I know obviously you like to take the piss out of me that I'm can be somewhat braggadocious at times. I'm proud of us, man. So you may have seen if you follow us on Instagram. I post like the recaps and highlights that we get from places, but we had 554,000 views on YouTube, over 500,000 views, which nice. Is fucking awesome. 147,000 minutes of watch time. So that's insane. To be fair,
that's pretty cool.
But I think did I work this out?
Carl's a stats nerd, for those who haven't figured that out yet.
I think I worked it out. I can't remember. But it's like, I can't remember, like 100 and something days or something worth of watch time. I think that could have even been TikTok. I don't know. But basically, loads of people saw our stuff. So we're
even if only one person had watched it, we'd still be happy.
Well, exactly.
But it's just nice because obviously we put videos out every week. We put the work in, and it's nice that we're seeing that bit of growth.
As we've always said, though, this is always a show for us to just catch up on a weekly basis, innit? And like we might chat wrestling or format it in a certain way, but we obviously have fun while we do the show, and then when the cameras are off, we just chat and have fun anyway because we're best mates at the end of the day. Yeah. So obviously, loads of growth there. TikTok as well has been awesome. We've also been all over the news this year.
Sorry about that.
Told you not to do the thing. Feeling some hot water. No, but like obviously
my OnlyFans did not work out.
But yeah, like literally stuff like we've been featured before on websites and stuff for like different interviews and different things that come from the show, which has been really cool.
Yeah.
But like this year we were everywhere. We were on Bleacher Report, we were on Sportskeeda, we were on Fightful, we were on Inside the Ropes.
Frightful, yeah. I think one thing you mentioned possibly on one of the other segments before was the fact that like I think this is the first time we've broke news.
Yeah,
because obviously we were lucky enough to, and we'll talk about some of the interviews, but we were lucky enough to interview Devon Dudley, who mentioned about obviously the beef or alleged beef between him and Bubba.
Yeah.
And obviously before they started doing conventions and stuff together again, he told us that that's what was going to happen.
Yeah.
And obviously mentioned about his son's coming to work to
WWE
and stuff.
Yeah.
And like he
dropped
a few bombs for us there.
Yeah, there's been new stories.
Some bombshells.
He's out of control.
And that, like you say, that caused that sort of like I think that's the first time we ended up like breaking stuff, but also like you say, it caused that sort of upturn.
Like obviously we've been lucky to have numerous things picked up in the news in the past and stuff like that. But yeah, this was crazy. And another one for that was Medusa as well. Like obviously, like they were super happy because she's promoting her book at the end of the day.
Yeah, and it got
we were everywhere. She did like a video and everything, didn't she? Just saying a management company sent her all these articles, and she was just like, "This is awesome," because at the end of the day, it's news, it's getting out there, and people are talking about it at the end of the day.
I was made up the way she handled it as well, because obviously she was talking about some of the clickbaity elements of it, and she's like, it is what it is kind of thing, and like they were picking up possibly on some of the things that would get attention, but it's all, I mean, she's doing a tell-all book at the end of the day, so I'm glad she didn't sort of approach it in that same way.
Exactly. And I should have like done some work ahead of time, but I'm lazy.
But you didn't.
But we had our most interviews this year, didn't we?
Oh yeah, not half.
Like by a long shot.
By a big margin.
2020 we had 3. So we had Thunder Rosa, Griff, and Georgia. 2021 we had 7, and then this year we've had 16 at least, as of my list, which may not be up to date, which is.
It looks pretty up to date.
Mental, to be fair.
Yeah. And to be honest, like I still look at this occasionally and think, God, like from being drunk. Sorry, Thunder, but it's true. From being drunk, interviewing Thunder,
the very first interview we ever did,
to like where we are now, where it's kind of like I don't want to say
being drunk and interviewing.
But no, I don't want to say you get used to it, but like we've got like a bit of a format to it now. We're a lot less nervous speaking to people that we're like fans of, because this is what we've always said. It's like we approach people who we're fans of, so it's kind of sort of like using examples from 2021. Then like Mickey James was like a childhood crush for you, Carl.
Oh God, yeah.
So like
adult crush.
So that's like kind of.
We can get past the fact that I didn't know how many titles you won. It's fine.
But
we've
like
moved on.
And we'll look at The Godfather's another example, isn't it? Godfather, like you watched as a kid, you watched Papa Shango.
Crush.
Yeah. And it's always like slightly nervy waiting for them to actually connect and get under. But once you're underway, you kind of get into a format with it. And
that in itself is mad, isn't it? To think, like, obviously thinking how nervous we were when we'd obviously arranged to chat with Thunder versus like how kind of not blasé, but it's just kind of like, oh yeah, it got to a point especially towards the end of this year where we had interviews every fucking other week, and it just got to a point where it was not the norm. 2 in the same day. Yeah.
Just because that's how it landed.
Fucking hell, Medusa and Santino on the same day, like fucking hell.
What a day that was.
How cool. But yeah, that's such a variety of interview as well. Like I'm always happy with how we do stuff. Like I've made no bones about it. There's people out there who go and do the podcast circuit, and they got something they want to promote, and they got to do all this kind of stuff, and that's fine. And if you want to speak to them people, like you can do if it's that kind of thing. But some people just get out there and they're on everything, and it's just like, well, what else is left to say? Do you know what I mean? It's like you can get them on, but you will have heard everything about whatever they want to push.
It's one thing I've always been like, because you do end up repeating some questions. Yeah, like there's been questions we've asked them that they've heard a million times before, but you want to have a conversation with them, and like you say, if there's kind of nothing left to talk about, so
exactly, because obviously we're fans at the end of the day, and we watch some stuff anyway, so we might see some of these interviews, and then well, what do we need to ask them for? We know the answer. It's nothing worse than like faking a question when you already know. So
yeah.
But yeah, I love the variety of stuff we've done. We've had behind the scenes stuff. We've had guests on from like conventions. We've had old school guests. We've had partner guests in like Top Rope.
Yeah, we got to talk to Top Rope because obviously we started drinking their beer, promoting their beer, and got to speak to them about the process and how they do it. That was fascinating stuff.
We had our very first interview because of our pwtv partnership, so obviously we got the chance to speak to MLW champion Alex Hammerstone, which is super cool. Obviously we're able to watch MLW now, which is huge for us.
Indeed.
It's another you can watch it for free on Pro Wrestling TV.
Yeah, it was harder to find before that. Like obviously there was stuff on YouTube, but then they had deals like in America and stuff. But like Pro Wrestling TV, we can just watch it now, which is awesome.
And I mean, obviously, like all of them are awesome. But even like Paola Blaze, I always look at that one because you and your wife watch 90 Day Fiancé. Yeah. So like you were like fucking dog's bollocks in your house, right? You're just like, I've just got this
fun fact, because we didn't put it in the actual show because my wife wouldn't let me, but at the end of that interview, I as we sort of stopped recording, I basically just gave my wife like a couple of minutes to speak to her, because I was like, she was actually a massive fan of 90 Day Fiancé, and I'm like, well, turns out she's a wrestler too, so we're speaking to her. Like that was kind of a coincidence, wasn't it? Because obviously she's coming up in the wrestling scene. She's like, she's a fascinating story as well, Paola, because she saw Fighting With My Family and was like, I want to do that shit. Yeah, it weren't even like I watched it growing up, loved it. It was like, I want to do that.
Did you see as well? Not long after we had her on the show, she got to meet Paige at a convention. Oh, as well. And, like that's nice. Cool. It's kind of come full circle for her. But and obviously like Barry Blaustein and stuff. I fucking love Barry on the mats.
That has a special place for me, the Barry one. 'Cause Barry was such a lovely guy and such a genuine person. Like, and not that that sounds weird. Like, it's not that he's the only one who was really genuine. No, my point is like, it was weird because he's sort of famous in his own right. You know, he wrote Coming to America and Coming to America. Yeah. It's hard. The second one. So he's worked with the likes of Eddie Murphy and stuff. He's wrote some big,
on a lot of stuff with Eddie, hasn't he? Yeah.
Beyond the Mat is the quintessential wrestling documentary, and I'm kind of in awe of his work in that sense. And one of the things we'll talk about the future of our show, we'll sort of touch on that as well. But just to see how he ultimately, and again when we were off the air, he's just a guy who is a wrestling fan, and we were having a conversation like you and me would have a conversation, and I'm like, it's awesome that like even after all these years and the success he's had with Beyond the Mat and other stuff, that he's just a wrestling fan at the end of the day.
He just gave up his time to just chat to us and stuff. He didn't, you know what I mean? He's away from he's teaching now in like screenwriting and stuff in a university. So yeah, I love that. Even like the Mountie, like for me that was a really cool one because my dad always loved the Mountie. Yeah. And like obviously like he was really big into wrestling like 92 when I first got into it. And like he used to just love the Mountie. And so it's cool to say I had the Mountie on the show and he was just,
and you know what as well, like it was I loved seeing how impassioned he was about what he was doing for the wrestling scene in Canada.
Yeah.
I was like,
it's sort of like he was right though. No one else is doing that kind of shit. Do you know what I mean? Like giving back in such a way to put like a platform out there for people to make it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, on the back of that, we spoke to Jeremy Prophet.
Yeah, who was obviously one of the winners of Wrestling Academy.
But he was again so grateful to the Mountie and so what's the word? Proud of the Canadian wrestling scene. Yeah. And if you watch the Jeremy Prophet interview, you'll see how impassioned he is about making the Canadian wrestling scene bigger. And he honestly, some of the stuff he illuminated, because obviously the Mountie touched on it, he was talking about the Wrestling Academy and what he's trying to do, whereas Jeremy gave us a bit of an insight in like how hard it is to break America. And you wouldn't think it'd be so hard to break America being Canadian, but the fucking hoops you have to jump through just to do it is insane. Yeah,
it's ridiculous. It's an issue in the wrestling industry I just wasn't aware of. And exactly, he's doing what he can to get that out there as well. So, but we've had just like such a, like, how fortunate have we been to just speak to all these people and it's just been awesome,
genuinely fascinating.
Yeah. So obviously interview wise, we've had fucking a great time, and we mentioned obviously Pro Wrestling TV. Like who like how crazy is that? Like we never thought ever, like we started out, we were just an audio podcast, and then we were like, maybe we should put stuff on YouTube. When we kind of explored that for a bit, and then now to go on to Pro Wrestling TV, a streaming service with cable.
We don't even really say podcast that much now.
Well, we're kind of not, are we, to be fair?
Well, I mean, we've done this studio element.
Yeah.
Like, the first 2 years, we weren't even sat together. We're doing it, like, some of the elements we're probably going to talk about. And yes, it's a reflective episode. We're talking about ourselves. Go fuck yourselves. But like we've upgraded the kit, so we've got the green screen, we've got the studio, we've got the mic, and with like let's sort of build on the more TV show element of it, because that's what we're slowly becoming.
I mean, to be fair, a lot of the format changes was as well. It's like this was the first time it was like, do you know what? This is serious. Like we're going to be on cable TV. We're going to be on a streaming platform. Like, we probably should try and step our game up. We're not in a pandemic anymore. We could meet up. We just need a studio space. And so we obviously did that, didn't we?
Yeah.
And, I think the show's been better for it. Do you know what I mean? Absolutely, because we can bounce off each other.
We felt, I suppose we felt compelled to...
Santa hat from, through the...
We felt compelled to sort of up our game, I suppose, when it was like, okay, we're going to be on a linear cable as well as being on that streaming platform. And obviously they were like super... helpful and enthused about us being part of it, so it was like, right, we need to like let's up the production value.
And it's one of them, like,
I think it's been awesome.
I mean, to be fair, like, you can tell there's still a long way to go. Like, we've got a really good microphone now. We still need to mess around and get the like filters on it in place, and you know what I mean.
We're still learning about
and like camera wise, we know there's a bit of a jumpy autofocus thing with it and stuff. Like we've got like a video capture card.
Switch that off.
We've got a video capture card. We'll explore different camera stuff in the new year, maybe.
Look, we bought this thing.
Look, it does something. We don't know what it does.
We don't know what it is.
So we are learning. We are kind of getting through it. But we're old now. We're old farts. You know what I mean? We might say we love tech and we're dead savvy, but we're probably not really.
Have you heard of this iPod?
iPod.
It's like a Zune. But...
It's the way you sleep. I don't really understand. So obviously, Pro Wrestling TV was awesome, and to be featured in Pro Wrestling Illustrated, to be actually put to print in a magazine, like the best magazine.
The name of our show.
The best magazine.
And yes, it was part of an article, because we'd obviously interviewed the wonderful Georgia Smith regarding her mission with her dad and his legacy. And even though it weren't like they weren't doing like the PWI's top 100 podcasts or something like that, it's just awesome to see our name in print.
It may as well have been, damn it.
Yeah, but to see our name in print there was just fucking cool.
Yeah, it's awesome. Obviously, I bought the magazine now.
You did, you bought a copy?
It's got pride of place. So just stuff like that is awesome. And obviously, we don't forget our roots either. So we mentioned we've obviously moved to TV and more of a talk show. Like, we had some big successes in the podcast world this year as well. Like, I mean, obviously, a big thanks to Nikolai from Wrestling Ognorden, or the Wrestler and the Nerd. I don't know how to say it.
I thought you did a good job with the pronunciation. Nikolai, absolute legend. Like, again, while we're talking, like, before we get into our side of it, like, Nikolai, we spoke to, and we'll get onto that collaborative stuff later. But Nikolai we spoke to, and he obviously is a massive wrestling fan, and was talking to us about how the wrestling scene and the wrestling fandom in Denmark is just not the same. It's not the same scale. So he obviously loves interacting with like the likes of ourselves or over across the pond in America and so on like that, because there's just not, the fandom isn't really the same for him. And it's a shame because there's like it's not a shame because the internet's there and there's a wealth of like people he can speak to and such like that. But like when you consider how like the wrestling scene is in Britain or how the wrestling scene is in America, it's crazy to think that it's like he's a massive wrestling fan and he hasn't got the same sort of indie scene over there.
Yeah, but to be fair to him, like he's a trailblazer in like Denmark for the podcast wrestling podcast world. Like he's he's now number 1 in Denmark and stuff. And to be fair, he was a massive help in us being ranked number 1 in Denmark because he was listening. And I'm sure he was telling like his friends and stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
And we ended up getting number 1 in Denmark, which is huge. And we also got on the Ireland charts. Did we get up to like number 4 or something? We got high.
Yeah, we got pretty high. We got pretty high in Ireland.
We got pretty high. So like we had that as well. There's like loads of loads of successes we had in the charts.
Dropping in and out of the charts consistently, which again for a long time we weren't in them at all.
Yeah,
so, which is nice.
Surprises me, I think, as well, because we are more of a video platform now as well.
Yeah,
and it's nice that we are like, this is why I'd never give up on the podcast side of it, because it's nice to be available across all mediums for people who want to listen to us while they're driving or doing something. Yeah,
because we're well aware, like you might not necessarily need to see our faces.
I mean, you should. I mean, this Santa hat's radiant is all I'm saying. But yeah, so I think fantastic achievements from a podcast standpoint as well. But you kind of touched on kind of collaborations and stuff there, and I think we've been fortunate enough to start to, I don't know why we haven't done it as much like we did. We've had supporters and we've obviously been supporting others podcasts since we started.
We've always kind of been over the socials, haven't we? Like we'll interact. We were I think one of the bigger parts, I suppose, to doing more collaboration and hopefully more in the future was Cheap Pop Wrestling, in all fairness, in their fantasy
faction.
I was going to say draft. I was like, it's not a draft. The fantasy faction, which has been awesome fun, but it also obviously joined a lovely wrestling community there, very like-minded. Because we've talked on that before now, but it's you have like a very toxic side of the wrestling fandom, so it's nice that like even when we all differ on opinions about stuff, it's not toxic, it's not just people being assholes. It's just a really good community, and that's been forged in the fantasy faction, which is the brainchild of Cheap Pop Wrestling, who've put a lot of work into the setup of the fantasy faction side of things, the point system, and keeping it fair, even though they win an inordinate amount.
Whatever. It's stuff like that, like like they made a little community out of it, didn't we? Like like we had like a prediction series, but then we ended up just getting like, I don't think we could have done like a group chat or nothing for it, because it just would have been like fucking loads of people in there. I mean, maybe we still could, to be fair. I don't know why we couldn't.
I mean we could try it, but I think I don't know, the prediction series has always been like a bit of a different animal. It crops up, people make the predictions, and then it goes away until the next pay-per-view.
You play out like constantly, don't you?
Yeah, the fantasy factions, cool. Like there's a constant rolling sort of community there.
Yeah.
So I think it's just different animals, and it's been and is hours of fun.
But it's been good.
We got totally battered out of the World Cup. So
oh yeah. I mean,
we left that so fucking quick.
I forgot to change my team.
It's entirely Carl's fault. Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's been good. And obviously, we did our first kind of collaboration episodes. Anthony had a fantastic idea of Get the F Out, where we discuss our wrestling pet peeves.
It was an idea.
It was a completely original idea.
Never stolen.
And it was nice to be able to bring those guys on to the show as well. So we had Nikolai, and we had Ant and Luke from Cheap Pop, and it was good, just to shoot the shit with like wrestling fans and talk about it. So that's something we'll do more of, I think.
Yeah, we've been talking for ages about like, oh, should we do like a pub quiz kind of thing and so on like that, and we never really followed through. And then I don't know why, we were just sort of utterly convinced like, Get the F Out, that'd be the one. And I think it's because it allowed the opportunities to sort of go off on a topic with like-minded wrestling fans, so it just made the most sense, didn't it?
Exactly. I think the format.
I do say go off if you watch Get the F Out. You get to hear some some good commentary on some topics.
You want to hear some thoughts on Jim Cornette. You want to check that out. But I think what's nice about it as well is, even outside the fancy faction group and stuff, like across the wrestling community, we've started to make a lot of friends as well. Like I know obviously we've been chatting to like you know, Shay and Katrina and people like that who do a lot of stuff, and like obviously they're keen to link up and collaborate on things, and obviously Dirty Heels, we've always been linked in with those guys. You know, the Wrestling Takeover.
When we talk about like doing a quiz, we've talked to Dirty Heels for a long time now. We're like, we definitely need to do a quiz, and we still haven't put the quiz together or done it yet. I know. But they've been even on board for a while.
SCW as well. What a cool like guy he is. I'd love to get him on as well. He's just like a guy who's kind of started out similar to us. Do you know what I mean? I think he's from Britain. He's moved to like Florida or somewhere now. Really? And like the bastard, jealous. But yeah, I'd love to get him on as well. So it's been very good from a community standpoint this year, I think. Definitely. And I think something that has kind of opened our eyes to try and do more stuff like that. We've always just kind of done our own thing, and we've shown support and liked a lot of stuff and helped people, but we've never really done
and for me, I've like, I don't know, you look at it and go like, as much as we can rant about things when we're doing our show, it's more positivity in the wrestling world. Like the wrestling fandom can be fucking toxic as fuck. But especially when something like the CM Punk incident happens and then everyone has to suddenly take a fucking side. But I don't know, for me it's like it's a positive side of it all, isn't it? That community. So let's all talk about wrestling because we're all fans of wrestling.
Yeah, why the fuck absolutely. So obviously we had all of that, which was good, but we were also lucky enough to appear on another show this year,
which was another first for us.
So the Working Fans Wrestling Pod, if you've not checked out our episode on that, definitely go and check them out, because it was just really fun, you know, for it to be people like obviously asking us quite like be on the other side of that lens, like be interviewed. You know what I mean? It was
kind of surreal, really.
And obviously we've had like a couple of like people ask in the past, and it's just never kind of materialized for our schedules or whatever, but this one we just managed to make work.
I think it's always kind of hard as well, because obviously the time zones are consistently like it's usually most of the wrestling fandom and most of the people we've sort of linked up with, I suppose, have been in the States, so you then like, well, we're in the middle of the night or they're in the middle of the night. It's always been a little bit difficult in that sense, hasn't it?
But you know, I really enjoyed that, so hopefully we'll, you know, as we get more people on our show, hopefully we can go on a couple of other shows as well next year. That'd be quite good.
Definitely be up for that.
And one of the big things we did this year, which was a big bold decision to make since it's been, you know, pretty much bread and butter,
staple of the show,
is we dropped This Week in Wrestling, didn't we?
I think we got to a point, like we always were like, oh yeah, let's talk about wrestling like every week, about the shows every week, and then we were getting to a point, it's like, I'll admit, I was watching NXT because I felt I had to, and that's when we're like, this is getting a bit silly, because like it was taking like the enjoyment out of it almost. Anyone who enjoys NXT, more power to you, but for me at the time especially, I was like, I'm not enjoying NXT. Like, it just wasn't my cup of tea. I understand it will be some people's, but I just wasn't enjoying it. Especially when they rebranded NXT 2.0 and it just wasn't the black and gold anymore. I was like, no, can't be asked. Yeah, it was scary. I wanted to go, do you know what, we're not going to do This Week in Wrestling anymore, and kind of remove a staple of the show. But obviously we looked at like viewing figures, and we looked at it from our perspective, what we were enjoying talking about, and it was more the news and like the, you know, the unique segments, as we've always called them. So I think we tried to switch that up. Well, because it was becoming like, the timing never worked. Like, again, it's never been about getting the viewers, but the timing never worked, because we would always be we're gonna find the right day, sort of slap bang in the middle of the week. So it was like, well, Raw's already happened, and like SmackDown's yet to happen, and Dynamite, depending on whether we landed on a Wednesday or Thursday, either has or hasn't happened. And so we never, like, if this was like a day job, we'd probably go back to something like that where we talk about it straight away. I think if we lived in America and the time zones were on our side, like, we do live streams and stuff, I'm sure, but it's just for where we are. I mean, well, look at, like, you look at fellow Brits who it's their day job, like their whole job is wrestling content, like Cultaholic, for instance, and then you understand like Raw happens, and then they do like ups and downs, what culture thing. But they do like the WTF moments and stuff like that, and you go, well, okay, yeah, fair enough, I get why they can do that, because like it's their bread and butter, so they can maybe have a weird sleep pattern or whatever, but they're straight onto the content, and you know, for us it's a passion project, and it's like we're not going to be able to. At the end of the day, we have to, you know, we're doing it out of pure enjoyment at the end of the day, and it's, we want to enjoy what we're talking about and what we're doing, and I just think if anyone wants to pay us to do it, I'm totally fine with it. But yeah, I just think I think the point you make around the timings and stuff, like, it just, I think we can't go live and talk about it because it's like really middle of the night stuff, be like 4 a.m. by the time we could talk about it. So yeah, it just didn't work for us, to be fair. But yeah,
before we move on to some stuff, what's coming next or stuff we want to explore, what would you say has been your favourite moment or moments of this year? If you had to put it all into perspective.
It's probably a weird one to say as a favourite moment, but one thing I'll pick out is like where I'm like, hey, we've made it, this is cool, was being asked to do an interview.
Yes.
Like, and I don't know if we need to name names there because I don't want to seem like
we
didn't seek her out.
Yeah.
But like the fact that it was like, oh, do you want to do this interview? It was like, we never had that before, and that was kind of like, oh, this is cool. Like,
yeah,
I like. Well, again, another one we've had very recently. We've been asked to do a film review.
Yes.
And I'm like, that's fucking cool. Like the fact that we're getting approached for stuff now is like if we carved a little niche for ourselves where like we're notable enough for that kind of thing, that's pretty cool for me. You know?
Yeah,
so
that's awesome. That,
like,
to be fair,
it's not a particular moment, but like they're kind of like phase for me. It's like that's pretty cool that we're now getting approached for stuff as well. That's kind of nice. But do you know what? Like in terms of favorite moments, a very recent one. Like speaking to Santino, about like, and it was not so much like the interview. I mean, we've always enjoyed every interview we've had, and it's been great speaking to people we've watched growing up and stuff like that. But when I say speaking to Santino, I suppose it was like on a human level, if you know what I mean. So like when the cameras weren't rolling and we're talking about like families and stuff like that, and you can see how much you just. I suppose I relate to him because he's clearly a dedicated dad, and I'm like, it's cool, nice,
and to think
having
like
that sort of like that. Relating to him on that level, it was really cool. So that's probably a favourite.
That's it. It's like stepping away from like being like, oh god, we've seen you on TV and we think this and that, and to be like, on a very human level, to be like, oh, you're a dad, and it's just relatable, and we can talk about these things.
His son is a very similar age, and just listening to how he sort of basically just dotes on him, and like obviously he was talking about his daughter who's in NXT at the moment, and that was kind of business like. But when you talk to him and he's like talking about like is basically his son having the sort of foundations of judo and why he went with judo and stuff like that, and you were saying about your son and doing jiu-jitsu, correct me if I'm wrong, taekwondo. I never fucked it up.
It's all martial arts.
And just things like that. I'm like, it's just sort of, I suppose, kind of weird, like relating to them on that level.
Yeah. No, definitely.
Not weird, but like weird in a good way,
Yeah.
So that's a particular favourite for me.
Yeah, I think there's been so many, hasn't it? Like, one of the things I like is how we've had people on the show, but then we've kind of maintained contact with a lot of them as well. Yeah. So like whether it's like chatting to them on Instagram messages or like obviously
Ladybird, absolute sweetheart.
Yeah, she's just the best, to be fair. I've got all the time in the world for Ladybird. I think she's fantastic, and she's going to really go on to do really good stuff. But Danny Danino as well, like just supporting us. Like she shared, obviously we didn't do this to share it, and get like, we haven't posted about it ourselves, but we sent like little Christmas cards, didn't we, to people, and just to genuinely thank them for coming on the show and just show our appreciation. And
because again, they've took their time out of their day to be on our little show.
Exactly.
And we know it's not like, we're not like the likes of What Culture or Wrestle Talk and stuff. Like, we know that we're a smaller fish, so the fact they've took the time is just lovely,
but like, I think like, Danny even shared the message on a story and stuff like that, and like people have always been really complimentary about us and being like, oh, really enjoyed this one, or this has been really good. And it's just stuff like that. It's nice to know that. Yeah, because it's nice to know, because at the end of the day, as you said, like they're taking their time, and there's nothing I could think of that would be worse than for them to go, okay, I'll speak to these guys and get off it and go, God, that was fucking painful. So it's nice to know that, at least they haven't told us anyway. That you felt like that was a fair point.
They haven't come out of it like, fuck, glad that's done, dickheads.
So obviously I like all that, and actually building up like friendships with the guests that we've had on. Pro Wrestling TV was a huge one. I just think those guys are awesome. I love the fact that there's a network that is all about wrestling. Like when I was a kid, there used to be the wrestling channel on Sky, and you could just go in, tune in, and just watch stuff and things. And then there's nothing. There's WWE Network, and obviously you can watch WWE, but like that was kind of it. So to have like a place where you can stuff, watch all this kind of stuff, and then for us to be on there is mad. Like it is mad. I know people might be like, well, you're on YouTube and that's got like, I don't know, it's bigger audience and all that. But what I asked, it's like to know that they trust us enough for our show to be on their network was really cool. I think,
especially like they're trying to make something that is like for wrestling fans.
Yeah.
So like you say, they're trusting us to be part of that. and they are still building. Like MLW was a big signing for them.
Yeah.
They've got tons of content on there. You know, they've got the Women's Wrestling Army on there, which is obviously a big deal in their connection with the likes of AEW. They've got Warrior Wrestling. They've got TNT being the exclusive home for TNT and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And that kind of felt like a good fit as well. You know.
Well, exactly. They've got like, you know, Northwest Wrestling. So.
Yeah. So like you say, it was nice to be sort of trusted to be part of that as well. You know.
Yeah.
But on top of that, you know, Pro Wrestling TV, and I'm not just saying this blowing smoke because we're on there as well, but like Pro Wrestling TV, my little lad's 3, so he's like, he doesn't really, you know, he likes like dinosaurs and Blippi and shit like that. And it's always like, not that I'm trying to force wrestling on him, but I'm always like, I wonder if he'll be a wrestling fan, because obviously I'm a big wrestling fan, you know, that sort of thing. And he likes to actually wrestle, but he likes to drop kick me and shit like that.
Yeah,
so
he likes to beating you up.
Yeah, he likes to beat me up. And one of the things that he started watching, because I was very conscious of like, well, I can't really go, oh, you want to watch wrestling with me and put AEW on? And it's like,
blood and guts.
Why are they wearing dog collars and stabbing each other? It's like, well, it's a different kind of wrestling, that, you know.
Yeah.
So I had to be sort of careful about the content of. And one of the things I got from Pro Wrestling TV, because where else do you find it in this country, was Triple Mania and AAA in general. Like he loves the sort of luchadors. He loves the connection he had with the Marvel franchise. So he was like watching. To him, he's watching like Spider-Man fighting Thanos in a wrestling ring.
Yeah.
So he's like loving AAA, and we watched the Triple Manias. I think there's 3 of them on there at the minute, but we watched a lot of AAA content on Pro Wrestling TV, and it's thanks to Pro Wrestling TV that there was. I found one I could watch with my son.
Yeah, that's so cool. That.
Yeah.
I need to. I mean, because I think similar with obviously with my son, he's into superheroes and stuff. But I don't think it was Clash. I had one of the events on that you can watch live over here. One of the Saudi shows, I'm sure, or Clash. And he was he started watching it with me, and he was like, "Oh, I like her." When he saw Alexa Bliss, he was like, "Can she come to my house to play?" And I was like, "Fucking hope so, kid." I can ask the question. She can come around anytime. So yeah, I love that kind of stuff. So yeah, I mean, what a year. We could talk. I think we've already talked way longer than we probably planned to about what an awesome year it's been. And we always say
just like how great is it?
Well, no, but it's like, I don't know.
It's reflective.
Yeah, it's reflective on how obviously proud we are of what we've done. And obviously, if you're still listening to this or watching this now, then obviously, thanks to you as well, because we wouldn't be here, would we? But well, we would. We just wouldn't have anyone listening. But we were going to talk about some stuff. What's next?
Yes.
Now, the one I wanted to chat about, because I know you've got a couple of bits on there to potentially talk about as well, but one I wanted to talk about was just around interviews. I don't think we ever intended, we never set out to be an interview podcast. In fact, or talk show now, we never, we even kind of said we don't like necessarily shows that are just all about the interviews, because there must be so much pressure to go, who have we got next week, that's the thing.
We never wanted that internal sort of stress of being like, well, I'm an interview show, so I need to find interviews, and
then having to arrange interviews with people you don't want to talk to and stuff. Like, it was never us. So we've always been about having balance, I guess, and it's been mad that we've had 16 or whatever interviews at least this year, and
it feels weird because like we're still true to that. They were all people we wanted to speak to. It weren't like a case of like, we want to be an interview show now.
Yeah, exactly.
They're all people we want to speak to. So it is still balanced in that sense.
So, I mean, we're not going to change our stance on that. You won't suddenly start seeing loads of interviews now because, they get more views and they, like, don't care at the end of the day. Like, I'd rather do an episode of 10 that gets 9 views on YouTube than, phone it in with somebody. But we've got a couple potentially lined up, or at least in discussions with and stuff. So you can expect interviews still to come.
Yeah, definitely.
We've got, hopefully it comes off. Obviously we can't say the names and stuff like that, but we've got one hopefully coming in the not too distant future, which I think could be really, really huge for us. Because obviously they're just, just awesome. And then we've got a couple hopefully of other like more niche type ones, like more kind of behind the scenes or more kind of future focused type ones.
As you've probably gathered, we're quite fans of like behind the scenesy type stuff. We like to get into the cupboards.
It's fascinating,
documentary style stuff. You know?
I find like we learn more as well. But you mentioned documentary style stuff there, Anthony. Have you got any thoughts on other types of content we might want to put out?
Well, I mean, this is like, again, I think I'm going to blame you, Barry. Not that you're probably listening to us at this point, but Barry Blaustein, one of the interviews we had, the writer of Beyond the Mat, which is like, I think any wrestling fan has probably watched that documentary at some point. And it's been in my head for a little while, and we've talked in the past about doing more long form content of like, you know, we try and keep everything as condensed as possible because it's a digestible podcasty type thing, but like taking some time to like, I'm not going to sort of spill the beans on what we're trying to do because, you know, not that I'm not saying we're going to fail to do it, but I don't really want to sort of give it away now. You know what I mean? But basically, we're
Red Hot Chili Peppers.
what we want to do as like, I suppose, a project that will be throughout next year. So you won't necessarily see it like January, February, but like is to put together like a documentary of sorts. Not like us two running around with it, not like a Louis Theroux kind of approach of like, you know, I tried to get into his house and was refused or anything like that. It's we're going to be covering a particular topic, wrestling, funnily enough.
Yes.
We're basically going to try and do more of a long form, like fully like edited, maybe speaking to some people, you know, I suppose looking at the way things like that, I mentioned it earlier, but that's Sadomania, fanship to friendship thing, Hulk Hogan and all that. So trying to, you know, maybe do more of a format of like that kind of sense of like, well, let's look at this and let's try and do it as more of like a film type thing, I suppose.
So it's less kind of us sat here in a studio talking directly at the camera and stuff, but kind of more maybe like it won't even be us sat here, but it's kind of just more kind of using video clips or images.
So you might get a bit more voiceover work, some actual clips, some like speaking to people who are like fans of or relating to, you know, that sort of thing. It's difficult because I'm trying not to sort of give away where my head is at the minute on the first one.
It's exciting though, the one that obviously it's so Anthony's kind of, as he said, since the Barry interview, it's kind of something he's been really keen to explore, and I think it's a really good idea, a really good concept, and something I'm excited to hopefully try. It's going to be different for us, isn't it? Because
it's probably going to be difficult because we've never done anything that sort of, because you then get into that whole thing of like we sort of got a rough idea that we can engage with people at least on like a 30-minute to 40-minute sort of format, but to do something like that is essentially a film. Try and get people to stay and watch the whole thing.
It's almost like
keep people engaged.
You have to write like a script and plan your scenes and plan like the flow of it and the length and everything. So
essentially, got the storyboard to put it out. It's not something that we obviously plan this week in, week out, but it's different, isn't it? Like Carl, for those who don't know, has written scripts before now. Not for wrestling, but for films and such. So, like, you've got probably more of an idea of how you format a script together. But even this will be a learning curve for us, wouldn't it? So,
well, obviously, my dad's a screenwriter, so
he is.
You know, apple doesn't fall too far from the tree. But I decided to do more children's stories at the moment.
But like your dad's, he's wrote a film. Well, he's wrote a few, but obviously he's like one notable film that's in my head that you can get. Do you want to give it a plug?
Amazon Prime, Half Pace.
There you go. So you can check out Half Pace on Amazon Prime for an idea of like your dad's sort of filmmaking credits. But again, because this is sort of documentary style, I suppose there'd be a learning curve all around, wouldn't it? Because there is a slight different element to it. It has to be scripted, but
the big challenge for me is like the editing of it and stuff and pulling it all together. And you know, it's I don't want to say it's very easy. It kind of is, but it's easy to just go, okay, camera on, we're going to talk. Right, and then
maybe cut that out. You know
what I mean? And it's like that's it done. But it's like trying to plan stuff where you know what I mean. It's very much like voiceover and what do you show and like what footage do you have access to.
We're going to try and pull different bits in. We're going to have to now for the first time ever think about like copyright elements and stuff like that. Or if we do, like as I say, the plan is to maybe speak to some people who are like in the fandom of, and you go, well, where like finding the best place to place those elements of it, and so there's a lot of. It's going to be fun, but it's going to be a bit of a learning curve, I suppose. And that's probably going to be like, obviously we'll still do our weekly show, but that's going to be like a project throughout the year.
It'd be a long form project. I think, you know, it might be that's the only one we do this year. Obviously, if we get it done quicker, then, you know, depending on how long it takes, then maybe we can try and get a second one out there. But I think we need to just focus on the one and see how we do. But so we have that, and then obviously one of the other things we've discussed, which I don't think we're fully committed to yet, but something that, so we're not about making money on this show at all, are we? Do you know what I mean? Like, it's never been. That's what I mean. If someone wants to pay us, like you will say this, if someone wants to pay us to do this show all the time, then cool.
Damn right.
But obviously, there's talks of like Patreons and things and like fan sites and all this kind of stuff. And I don't know, it might be something we explore, but only if we feel like there's something warranting the fee, if that makes sense.
And we'd never do it with any sort of like, you should go here and pay, or you're not. They probably won't change the content at all. But
God, no. There'll be nothing behind a paywall. It's always going to be, everything we do will always be for free on Pro Wrestling TV, on, everywhere you get podcasts and on YouTube.
And that's where we're toying with Patreon, but it's like, well, what can we offer a Patreon that wouldn't be us taking stuff away that we used to give away for free? Yeah,
we've had thoughts around like, allowing people to get closer to the guests that we have on the show and ask questions and stuff like that. But what would you want to see? You know what I mean? Maybe it's not for us. Like, we've never done it up to now for a reason, essentially. But it's something we floated the idea about and something that I think we'll explore next year. But is there an appetite for it? You tell us. And what would you want to see and what do you think would be worthwhile?
Because I mean, so far, like when we've been being honest about it, when we toyed with the idea, is like, we're still putting the content out there, but then do you use the Patreon element to go, well, if you're a Patreon, then you can have some control over like what we like. Do we do another 10 or like etc. Like, you can control what segment we do that week, or like say you can ask direct questions to an interviewee. You get to know who we're interviewing before it comes out and stuff like that. Because again, like, other than Medusa, who actually advertised it before we got a chance to, we don't normally say who our guest's going to be until the day.
Oh, so funny that, wasn't it?
Yeah. Like,
by the way, I'm on this. I was like, oh, she's showing up then. Shit, it's real now.
And I get it, because obviously Medusa was, as well as being a wonderful guest and speaking to us about her career, she was brought in a book. Yeah. So I understand like that the element for her was like, I'm going to be on this show this week. But normally we don't do that. But again, like you say, some of the elements of the Patreon could be like, well, this is who we're getting on this week. Yeah. So if you want to ask any questions, ask now. And then obviously,
Yeah, exactly.
So there could be elements to that. But again, it's just something we've sort of battered about a bit, I suppose, because the content that we put out week in, week out is not going to change from that. So
no. But yeah, so it's all exciting stuff, to be fair. I think we will still obviously have interviews, but it's only going to be with people that we want to talk to. So if those opportunities come up, then absolutely we'll be all over them. If they don't, they don't. So we're not going to go chasing interviews because it's just not what we're about. So we'll obviously have different types of segments and things. Then there'll always be the news. There's always news every week. So you'll always get that from us. You'll always get a different, unique segment as well.
And we'll always bitch about something.
Oh, yeah. Oh, God, yeah. But yeah, I think interesting around the kind of documentary style stuff. So that's going to be a bit of a big learning curve and change.
And I definitely want more collaboration. I'm convinced, right, that this will be fun if we do a collaborative episode with one, maybe a few different podcasts, where we play Guess Who, but like wrestling related. I'm convinced that will be fun.
Yeah, we need to find a way to make that work, don't we? There's got to be some kind of online Guess Who maker or something, and then people can play along that way. Otherwise, we're going to be shipping Guess Who boards across the globe.
I'm convinced it'll be fun because of some of the wild fucking questions you're going to get to eliminate certain wrestlers.
Yeah.
So I'm convinced we can make this a really fun game. Yeah. If nothing else, we'll all enjoy it.
Oh God, yeah. We'll have fun, and that's all that matters. So yeah, hopefully you've enjoyed listening to us, rant on for a little bit. But obviously, season's beatings. It's the 2022 recap, and
And this may seem a bit self-involved, but this is the one time a year we give ourselves to talk about ourselves. So.
Well, that's it. And hopefully. I mean, it's going to sound even fucking more self-absorbed and be like, hopefully you've learned something. But, like, obviously we've talked about, like,
I hope you've learned something today.
Well, like, obviously we've talked about what we've learned over the last year and stuff, and obviously about YouTube and things like that. And, if there's other podcasts or creators out there listening to this, then hopefully anything like that's been helpful as well. But
while we're talking, what's your goal for next year, Carl?
I never have goals, me.
My goal, I have a goal for next year, and it's to look at the fucking camera.
That would be helpful, yeah.
Because I always look over here, which is where Carl's laptop is.
I know. Because I need to get better at moving it to like the middle.
Well, the problem is, if we're being honest, I think I might be a little bit vain.
You just like looking at yourself?
Because I'm looking at me. And I don't know if it's vanity or just like I'm trying to make sure that like I'm in the shot right or something, but I end up not looking at the camera. So my goal for next year is to look at the camera more, so I feel like we're interacting more. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't have goals. I just I hope we keep doing what we're doing.
So you like Everton?
So we're looking for a new co-host for the A2theK Wrestling Show next year. So just
the funny thing is, I don't even follow football. I don't know if that was a good jab or not.
Fuck you. But yeah, I think incrementally we can just keep doing little bits. Obviously, we might improve the kit, maybe camera wires and stuff. Might figure out how to make the microphone actually work the way it's
By all
meant
accounts, this is a popular mic though, so we think we've hit the nail on the head.
We've got the right mic.
We need to learn how to fucking use it.
Yeah, we need to just like, well, it doesn't help when Anthony's fucking, playing fucking the cup song on the fucking table.
Well, I go behind the scenes every week. I have to try and remember to not put this on vibrate.
Yeah. So, how many times have you listened to
that? Was a phone. Yeah. By the way, in case you weren't sure what I was talking about.
That's what he's telling you.
I'm aware that it's an audio format as well, so it's a phone.
Again, because I'm vain, I the updated Amazon music, so I downloaded the new update, and when it opened up not on my music but on podcasts, and obviously our podcast's on there. So I wonder how the latest episode sounded, and it was our wild prediction. So I pressed play, and you could hear like. And then the intro, and it was just like, we need to find a way to cut that shit out. But we're all still learning, you know what I mean? But
indeed,
it hasn't hindered us too much.
Yeah. Come along with us while we learn what we're doing.
Exactly, or tell us what the fuck to do. That'd be nice. That'd be helpful. So yeah, until next year.
Ho ho ho
ho. That's not nice. Call me a hoe. But yeah, we hope you all have a wonderful Christmas, wonderful New Year. We will be back in the new year with some very exciting stuff. Indeed. And happy holidays.
Happy holidays, everyone.
And until then,
Merry Christmas for everyone. All right, what a way to sign off. That would have been
heartfelt to go fuck yourself. Have a great Christmas, and we'll see you in 2023.